Return to our earlier topic on corruption and of course the measures that have been put in by the head of the public service this evening, that is sending home senior heads of procurement and accountants, both in ministries, parastatals and other state-run corporations. Kwame Owino is from the Institute of Economic Affairs and he joins us now in studio for analysis. And Kwame, good evening, and thank you for coming in. So let's start with just the basics. What do you make of this procurement and accounting purge, if you like?
Well, let's just start with one thing. I think before we talk about that, let's talk about the president talking about using polygraphic machines as a lie detector tool in order to find out who's corrupt and not. That's a very bad idea. It's a bad idea because it's actually junk science. So I think the presidential team needs to add somebody who's a dispassionate advisor to the president on scientific matters. It shows us very, very poorly that we think that a lie detector machine actually will be able, is on the front line in the tools against corruption. So some of your viewers will have seen that one of the highlights of an article in the Daily Mail today talks about somebody who fooled a lie detector machine, actually passed the tests when he claims he was born in the year 6494 and has just taken a time machine back to Earth. So let's leave that aside. The second is, I think, the president's seriousness in dealing with corruption is not questioned. I think the tools and methods that he's chosen worry me. So for instance, you'll create dysfunction by actually asking many people to leave all at the same time. So I don't know what's going to happen in this. So yes, I mean the 2 or so weeks when you'll be required to actually do the vetting again and stuff like that. So that's the first thing. I also see something that Kenyans are concerned about, which is it really legal to actually tell people that they have to leave their jobs and they may have to leave their jobs when we have terms of service in the public service? I think he's walking on the very thin line where he could actually go to court and say, look, these measures once again. So intent is one thing and it's very, very important, but I think he must choose the right policy tools. The third issue is, I do not think that our constitution would allow anybody to incriminate himself by actually subjecting him or herself to a lie detector test. So it is possible for people to say, look, I do not wish to incriminate myself. For that reason, I will not take the test. Then what does the president do?
Let me take you back to, you know, the challenges that may be caused by having this sheer number of staff leave ministries and whether that's legal or not. You know, many have opined that this is where corruption takes root. If anybody knows that something is going off in a ministry or a corporation, it will be the accountant and it will be somebody in procurement. In that sense, do you feel that this is not targeted at the right people, or are you just saying that it may not be entirely legal? Well,
I am concerned that this is a very blunt instrument because I think when you say because we are concerned about corruption, so you're sending everybody home and asking them to be vetted, it's a very blunt instrument. My view is that it's true that, as you said, I mean, among the things that we'll be examining lifestyle audits and all that, a presentation of the accounts and everything else. This is still very possible. This is still very, very possible without creating dysfunction within the public sector, in my view. So that's the first one. Secondly, by the time an accountant passes vouchers that are obviously fake, if I may use that word, it is unlikely that the permanent secretary and it is unlikely that the cabinet secretary doesn't know. So this is what concerns Kenyans, that we're actually going to punish the small guys and you will find them with an odd 6 million here and an odd 10 million here, while the guys that are stealing billions and using them to buy choppers and palatial homes will be completely sitting with the president, probably in cabinet. That's the thing that concerns us.
Okay, and that's what you think it won't do? It won't get the whales, as it were?
Yes, it will not. It will catch the small fish and punish them very, very aggressively. Many of them will probably lose their jobs. They'll probably be in court for the next 2 or 3 years. And by the time they get acquitted, we probably have forgotten about it.
You talked about this being a blunt tool. What's a sharp one?
Well, the sharp one is basically to just ask the cabinet secretary and tell them, look, you work in the Ministry of Health, for instance, or you work in the Ministry of Transport. Look at the Auditor General's reports and find me the culprits. Give me that list and ask them to leave jobs tomorrow. And I want the entire amount that the Auditor General has created as has passed an adverse opinion on to be resolved. And if that doesn't happen, then obviously as the appointing guy for the cabinet secretaries, then he can actually ask them to say, look, then I hold you responsible. But what I think has happened is we are actually sweeping staff under the carpet. And as I said, it will be the odd 6 million here, somebody who actually got the crumbs. The problem is at cabinet level.
Okay.
We cannot lie about that. The problem is squarely at cabinet level. If you're not purging at that level, then obviously we're just hoodwinking Kenyans.
All right. Beyond removing people, is there a need for a larger systems audit, the way in which government transacts business, the way in which the systems that are used? For instance, a lot of people have been raising queries over IFMIS, etc. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and the most embarrassing thing about this is we were here 2.5 years ago. The same tricks that were used to steal money, if I may use that word, to steal money from the public sector when the NYS rule started, the Ministry of Health scandal started, are the same ones that have been used. Weakening IFMIS, giving false codes, giving codes that cannot be traced to individual persons who are then using those codes to actually bypass systems offsite. So that 2 years later, this has not been covered tells me that the president dropped the ball. Because at that time, he seemed to be serious. He actually asked a few of his colleagues to leave. An audit was supposedly carried out. The Auditor General was asked to audit NYS and stuff like that. So if you look at this, the Auditor General's reports and some of the audits that were done, the same problems that we had 2.5 years ago are the same ones we have today, which means nothing happened. Yeah.
So what should change in terms of the system?
Well, if you're going to have an IFMIS system, somebody has to be responsible for who holds authority to actually alter things. So I'll give you the example. I work in a small organization, but any time an alteration to accounts are known, it can only be 2 people, and those people are known. So when I go to them, they don't tell me, well, there are other people. It cannot be. It cannot be. It is known. Only 2 people can make those alterations. I am one of them and another person out there. So if those are, we don't even have to ask ourselves who picked the check or who did this. Those 2 people have to answer. So that level of authorization, it's very, very delicately provided. It looks like in our case, so many people have keys into the system, and that in itself is a problem. So the system is actually been designed not to work, as opposed to being designed to work. So that's the issue. That's
a big one. Yeah. Okay, and finally, you actually alluded to lifestyle audits a little earlier, but with your background in finance, so I mean, what other clues can investigators follow to catch the whales?
There's no bigger clue than following the money. You see, the government has known accounts. Every time a check is issued from that account and it is paid to somebody, it has to be processed within a Kenyan bank. Follow up that Kenyan bank, find out how many times, because I know what they do is they split it into several accounts. Some of them are used to buy Forex, which is then sent about. If you follow that money, and you can get forensic experts to actually follow that money, you don't have to send anybody home to create dysfunction. They will follow that money. It will be found. It's clear. It does not disappear.
Money does not disappear.
It doesn't. Even if it was used to buy property, even if it was used to buy lunch, if it was converted to a credit card which was used to buy jewelry or whatever it is, it'll be found. So if we really wanted to give somebody unlimited scope to actually follow all that money, it will be found. And that's not even magic. It can be done. Accountants, even within Kenya, can do it.
All right.
Yep.
Kwame Owino.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your insights.